Thanks to the support as a channel member, Robert Bannerman. Well, folks, it's just about as tense as it could possibly be going into the final two games of the season. We could still mathematically, possibly just about qualify for the Champions League, especially if the top five all get in. We're sat in the European qualification spots. We might not qualify for anything at all. I have no idea what's about to happen, but goodness me, we haven't had an absurdly good season, regardless of whatever happens. Hello and welcome to part 129 of Wembley to Wembley. I'm Kevin. Coming up on today's episode, we have the final two games of our league season. We're away against Leeds, at home against Derby, and since you were last with me, we've been weird. I mean, we've won most of our games, as you can see, but when we lose, we get spanked. We lost 4-0 to Arsenal, which is understandable. We lost 4-0 at home to Sheffield Wednesday. Without that result, we'd be sat in a Champions League qualification spot now. Also frustrating that we lost at home to Brentford. Those two matches, if we don't get into Europe, that's where we need to focus our attention. They're the games all season long we've talked about having to win. That being said, we have beaten Tottenham, which, I mean, they're just below us. So I guess that's a positive. And also Middlesbrough, despite their points deduction, have got away with it and have managed to survive because West Ham, Burnley and Norwich are all absolutely rubbish. We could have stayed in this league on 30 points. We were safe by like October. Let's get into the final day of the season. It's Leeds away. Leeds are 12th in the league. I'd like to think we can beat them. Those two are the wrong way around, and we want him in there. We've started messing around with the Segundo Volante. We don't use it all the time. I wasn't brave enough to use him against Arsenal, but I mean, you've just seen against Arsenal, we lost 4-0. So maybe the Segundo Volante is the way forward for Christodoulou. So this is the team. Slocum in goal, a back four of Martin, Agume, Fanimo, and Vaughan, Dixon, and Christodoulou in midfield. But in their anchor Segundo Volante formation that we originally signed them both to do and then chickened out of doing for about 3 years. Duffy, Ansong and Druskovic then behind Musat up front. Carstairs is injured. He's going to be out for the rest of the season. He's done his groin. So Musat needs to step up and prove that he is the future of this football club. Like I say, though, one way or the other, regardless of the outcome of these two matches, if we lose them both 4-0, it's still been a fantastic season if we don't qualify for Europe. I would almost argue it's better long-term for the club if we don't qualify for Europe, because if we're in Europe, our squad is going to be stretched thin, and second season syndrome, very much a thing in Football Manager. Next season is going to be tough. Everyone's going to take us more seriously than they have this season. We're going to get a massive reputation boost over the summer, especially if we qualify for Europe. Imagine the reputation boost if we qualify for the Champions League. So all of a sudden, every league game is considerably harder. And then if we've got a European campaign where we're getting beaten as the whipping boys of Europe, keeping our morale nice and low, there's a scenario where we get relegated if we qualify for Europe. So part of me thinks it wouldn't be the end of the world if we didn't win these. It's one of the reasons I've been experimenting with the Segundo Volante, because if it went wrong, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter if we don't make it into Europe or not. The fact that it seems to be working and he's doing the role really well, I guess, is a positive for if we do end up in Europe. We've got a guy playing in a very fancy European role, which is certainly a player role that I don't ever remember using in Football Manager before. But it is a player role that the fancy pantsies at the FIFA World Cup all seem to love using. So there's definitely something to this Segundo Volante thing. And I think we've got a guy who, I mean, he's not perfectly suited to doing it in the Premier League. If you look at how his attributes match up to the Segundo Volante role, because we've not really been focused on getting him to do it, there are a few of the more attacking attributes that he hasn't really got. He's certainly, after 3 years of playing as a ball-winning midfielder for us, he's certainly developed as a ball-winning midfielder, and his more defensive attributes have come on much faster than his more attacking ones. But when he first arrived, he was a well-balanced Segundo Volante, and maybe we should have played him there all along. Who knows? But we are trying to build something up here. I mean, where is he? Is that him all the way up there? Is that Christodoulou there? Up. I mean, he's the furthest man forward. Why wouldn't he? Oh, no, That's Musat. So where's Christodoulou? Is that him? Where is he? I've lost him. He certainly attacks a lot on the attacking instruction, as you would imagine he would. Manchester City 2-0 up over Liverpool makes it a lot harder for us to qualify for the Champions League. I think top 5 probably go in. But as it stands right now, we're 3 points behind them with a much worse goal difference. We're not realistically looking at the Champions League, though. Europa League would be lovely. 6th place definitely would get us Europa League. Even as low as 8th probably gets us Conference League. So I think we're probably getting some flavour of Europe regardless, unless something goes desperately wrong. But we'd like a few twists in the tail. Now we've come this close, we might not get another opportunity to get in the Champions League for 3 seasons. Let's get in now, take the money, and worry about the consequences later. And Fanimo is there at the near post with his 4th goal of the season. He's so good in the air that I'm surprised he's only scored 4 goals over the course of the season. Fingers crossed it's something that he can add to his game a little bit more going forward. He certainly seems to be getting, I think all 4 of his goals have come in the second half of the season. So he's becoming more of a threat as time goes on. Is he going to grab another one here to really hammer that point home? He's not. That one's missed him entirely. Manchester City now 5-0 up over Liverpool. Are Liverpool going to be the next team who fall off Manchester United style? Because they're in very real danger of not qualifying for Europe, which is exactly what did it for Manchester United. They were a top 6 team forever. They had 1 year where they didn't qualify for Europe. It was a financial disaster. They ended up getting relegated the next year. So all eyes on Liverpool next season if they continue to crumble. I guess a lot depends on the manager appointment they get this summer. Presumably, if they don't qualify for Europe, whoever's in charge now, regardless of when they're appointed, is getting fired. Cross comes in. Christodoulou's there. Segundo Volante. I think that's 2 goals in 3 matches for Christodoulou. His only 2 goals of the season. He likes the role. I think this might be his future. It's good work from Duffy on the left. Cross comes in. And look how far forward he is. That guy's a defensive midfielder. This role is certainly a useful one, isn't it? And it also gives us that outside chance of that 5th place finish, because if Manchester City drop points on the last day and we win again, anything can happen, boys and girls. Right, Ansong is recovering from injury and is shattered, so he's coming off. Druskovic can come off for Williams. Williams, by the way, as he's been very much a bench fringe player, done very well to weigh in with 8 goals over the course of the season. I think him as the backup to Musat going forward is something I'm pretty comfortable with. We'll take off Martin for the return from injury, Livingston as well, who broke his leg back before Christmas and is now just about getting back to full fitness. I don't think he's fully match fit, but he should be able to get 20 minutes in at the end of today's game. It all helps to make sure he's going to be in the fittest possible state at the start of summer training, and that's what we need from him. Right, Christodoulou, well-deserved rest. Kerslake can do the Segundo Volante role for the rest of the match. He actually is pretty good at the role as well, so we've got 2 players who can do it. I think it may well be here to stay. You've seen how effective it's been today. What I'd really like to do then is the next level of shenanigans is if we're going to be staying with wide wingers the way we are, rather than inside forwards, and that certainly seems to be the profile of wide player we keep finding, it might be time to bring in the good old-fashioned inverted wing-back, inverted full-back thing, so we get that more solid back 3 from the inverted full-back and have the inverted wing-back stepping up alongside Dixon when Christodoulou goes on walkabout. So that might be something for us to toy with over the summer, maybe see if we can bring in the right kind of personnel to be able to do that, and continue to evolve our tactic. Look at me doing tactics. How I've changed. But this is, I think this guarantees Europe of some description. Depending on what happens in that game in hand Tottenham have got, which I think they play later today, we might have just qualified for Europe in our first season in the Premier League, with the potential of an upgrade to the Champions League still maybe on the cards. Let's check the inbox. But I think we've got European qualification here, which should give us an enormous budget to play with, which would be very handy. If we head into the inbox, Wembley qualify for the Conference League. We are definitely in Europe of some flavour. But as confirmed there is still the chance we could qualify for the Champions League, which I fully acknowledge. I agree with your comment section. This team getting in the Champions League is absurd. I refer you to the tour team that I won the Champions League with a couple of years ago. Absurd things sometimes happen in Football Manager. Who knows, eh? Let's play our final game of the season against Derby and see if something absurd can happen. Right, we're bringing Williams in for Musat because Musat, again, didn't really do anything in that last game. So Williams is going to get another start up front. We still need to manage Ansong's return to fitness as well. Something else that's just occurred to me, we've got to have homegrown players in our squad for Europe next season. We have 0 homegrown players at club. Obviously, the wider footballing world has 0 decent, like Premier League quality Wembley homegrown players. Christodoulou does become homegrown at club this summer, so he'll be one. We're going to have some unhappy people with the squad as it's currently structured, who we're not going to be able to fit a 25-man squad in, which means we're potentially going to have to operate on a smaller Premier League squad so that we don't have a bunch of unhappy players because they didn't get registered for the European squad. It's something for us to worry about in the next video, which will be the transfer special. But we're not going to worry about that today. We're going to stay looking at positives today. We are going to try and get into the Champions League. Manchester City are going to try and spoil it for us. They've already gone 1-0 up against Crystal Palace. If they win that game, we can't get in the Champions League. Palace have just equalised. Obviously, we still need to go ahead in our game. I still don't even know for sure if a 5th place finish gets us into the Champions League. City have just got ahead again, so I don't think it's going to be something we need to worry too much about. But obviously, I think 6th gets us Europa League, which is still an upgrade on the current Conference League qualification spot. Part of me thinks Conference League we could maybe even win, so it might be better to play in that rather than the Europa League, which we run the risk of coming up against some decent opposition in, and again getting that European whipping boys thing. Whereas if we are just in the Conference League, it could have the reverse effect and actually be a confidence boosting thing rather than something that completely drains the morale out of the squad like a Champions League campaign would be. We have left them in an enormous amount of space there. I have no idea why that guy didn't shoot, but Christodoulou then deals with the problem. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Poor pass from Dixon, and Ansong's been sent off, and that is our Champions League hopes being sent off with him. He wasn't fully fit. We've rushed him back. He's still going to go on to be a long-term hero for us, but for today, he is the villain of the piece and could lead to us. I mean, maybe I've asked him to do that deliberately because I want to play in the Conference League for the reasons I just outlined. Palace have now equalised against Manchester City. There is still that outside chance. We've seen final days of the season in Football Manager before. We know there could be a twist in the tail coming. The game is putting it on a plate for me. I think we have to go attacking, don't we? We've got to try and win this football match because we've got to do our bit. If Crystal Palace do us that favour, 10 men or not, if we're being offered it on a plate, it's rude not to partake, isn't it? It's just the basic rules of going to a party, which of course is the rules we base all of our Football Manager decisions on. Right, it's back with Beswick, who is now probably firmly set in place as our starting goalkeeper. He's played a few matches. We've taken the captaincy off Slocum. We've given that to Agume, so we don't feel the need to have to play Slocum because he's club captain anymore. And as I'm talking about him being the captain, is it offside? Please don't ruin all our hopes, Derby. Please. Come on, is that 2 goals disallowed now in this match? The Football Manager gods are toying with us, boys and girls. Right, let's offer some encouragement. Is Musat ready to come on and be a hero? I think he might be. I'm tempted to bring a not close to fully fit Carstairs on just because of that performance against Liverpool in, was it yesterday's episode? The previous episode, whenever that was, I think was the 3-goal comeback against Liverpool that Carstairs orchestrated. Right, we need to make some changes. We need to do something. Williams is going to come off. Musat's coming on. Duffy's going to come off. Hermoso is back in fit, so he can come on. And Martin can come off for Graben. Much changes, and it's back with Beswick, who plays it forward, looking for Williams. That might be his final touch, unless we make something of this highlight, but the ball's gone straight back to Derby. So I suggest it's their highlight, although Duffy intercepts, and it's now with Dixon. Dixon forward to Duffy, and now Williams back to Dixon again. I mean, that wasn't the counter-attack I was hoping it would be, but Dixon's now got a little bit of space to pass forward into. Williams has dropped deep. Christodoulou plays it under Druskovic, who's through on goal. And, I mean, he tests the keeper, but unfortunately does go behind for a corner. But we have been looking good from corners lately. Hermoso is on to hit the in-swinger, and it's aimed at that near post, and Fanimo couldn't get contact with it. It's come out to Dixon, who seemed to be on the edge of the area, was about to complain that such a large man was on the edge of the area for a corner. Now we know why. That is an absolute screamer from Dixon to put us 1-0 up, and possibly, depending on what's going on with Manchester City, that goal could possibly get us into the Champions League, which is a ridiculous sentence. Dixon has been with us for, what, 3 years? He was a League One quality player when we brought him in, and he might have just scored a goal to get us into the Champions League. As it stands right now, we are 5th in the Premier League, which I think is enough. That's bonkers. Don't count your chickens before they're hatched, boys and girls, but right now, we're dreaming a little bit. Just hold on. If we come off attacking, we have come off attacking. All eyes on what's going on at Crystal Palace. And, I mean, if Brentford could score against we could get into 4th. I mean, we can't because their goal difference is so much better than ours. But come on, boys, just hold on from here. Just hold on. I mean, this is 10 men, by the way, as well. This is a hero's performance. It's still 2-2 between Palace and Manchester City. I think we've finished 5th here, unless news comes through with another goal. And then it's just a question of, well, is 5th enough? We don't know if 5th is enough. We have finished 5th in the Premier League. Do we get confirmation? There's confirmation we've qualified for the Europa League. Do we have to wait and see what happens in the Champions League before we know? Newcastle have won the league. We've been given 30 million quid. Right. Who's in the Champions League? So Champions League final is Arsenal against Milan. I mean, if Arsenal win that, we're just about guaranteed it, aren't we? Although, does it depend? If Tottenham win the Europa League, I think they take the spot. Because I think you could only have 5 from one league in. So we need Tottenham to lose, I think. We'll do that now. It's only 3 days away. Oh, my word, it's all kicking off. Right, the board have given us budgets. £24 million of transfer budget, nearly £1 million a week of wage budget. We could alter those later. I mean, if we qualify for the Champions League, presumably that's getting altered later. But the biggest news before that Europa League final is we've had some movement on the stadium and confirmation we are heading back home to Sudbury. That's where Wembley FC actually are in real life. So we're heading back pretty much to the location of. I've just been distracted. I don't think we're going to be able to call it that, lads. Somebody get Scott on the phone. I suspect we might get a letter in the post saying that's not going to be something we're allowed to call it, but we are heading back home to build. We're building Wembley Stadium because why not? They're starting building it now. They started building it yesterday. It's going to be completed in just 2 years, 26,000 capacity. There is money that we've taken on in the form of a loan and a stadium sponsorship. So if we have a look at the loan situation, we were so close to being out of debt. We had one more payment to make on that loan and we've taken on a bunch more debt. But yeah, we have a new home. I mean, we can't see it yet, but Wembley Stadium. You're not, guys, you can't call it that. Wembley Stadium. Wembley Stadium. Maybe England have moved out of it. No, it doesn't exist. Hold on, where do England play? England play at, it's just Wembley. It's not Wembley Stadium. So we're going to have Wembley Stadium next to Wembley. Again, I suspect we're going to get a cease and desist. But the stadium is coming. Now the Europa League final should settle whether we're in the Champions League or not. Right, Tottenham won it, which I think means we're in the Europa League. I think. Because I don't think there can be a 6th English team in the Champions League. I could be wrong. Are we going to have to go forward even further to look at the Champions League final? No. We'll find out in the transfer special. I think it's Europa League. Europa League is fine. We're off to Wembley Stadium and we've got loads of money to spend. We're going to have a lovely summer, boys and girls. If you've enjoyed that, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for daily Football Manager videos. And thank you very much for watching.